Hello and welcome to the Leading Communities podcast, brought to you by Aspire for You CIC and produced by That's All Media CIC. We're on a mission to understand what it takes to help communities to start caring, keep caring, or care more about an issue.
Welcome to the Leading Communities podcast, where we're talking to communities about what matters to them. Could you both please introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about where you're from and what work you're currently doing in the community?
I run a small community interest company in Warsaw. Edyta volunteers for us. And we currently run a small support group for Polish women living in Warsaw, helping them with things they want to change in their life, whether it's physical health, mental health, finances, or just like grow as a person or whatever it may be that they are trying to achieve. So that's our focus. We as an organization altogether, we focus on health and well-being as a holistic approach of families. So we don't support just women, but we have space for kids as well.
Thank you. Edyta?
Myself, I volunteer with Sylwia, but this is not only one place I'm volunteering.
Okay.
I'm also volunteering for also Council Early Help for parents. We're just going to able to start. I'm volunteering in hate crime ambassadors. I'm one of the hate crime ambassador. This is like giving people advice around hate crime. If something going on, where to report, how to report, and things like that. Recently, I started work in Nasz Dom, another charity organization.
Okay.
There is we offering support for Polish community. Yeah. Not only there is Eastern European and also local people who needed advice. So we're doing advice. We are like connectors between, because usually it's a language barrier.
Yes, of course.
And what else am I doing? And myself, I'm qualified counselor. I qualified last year.
Brilliant.
At the moment, I'm not working as a therapist yet, but there is a plan because there is a need.
There's definitely a need, without a shadow of a doubt. I myself have suffered with mental health issues in the past, so I know how difficult it is to get support. But as you've just mentioned, the language barrier, it must be even harder if you're living in a foreign country. I've lived in a foreign country as well, so I've lived in Spain. To try and get that support, it's hard enough in your own country, isn't it? But when you come over here and you come for that better life, I've read some of Sylwia's bio on your website. So can you just tell me how it felt when you came over here and how, I'm not even going to say easy or hard, I'm going to say how hard you found it to get the support that you needed when you first came?
Okay, so it's a long story altogether, to be honest, but I came when I was 21. So I was, now looking back, I think I was fairly young when I came here. I had no family, no support. I came on my own. And the reason I came here, it was to work in social care. So I was working as a support worker in a residential home. So obviously I came, and then again, at the time, I didn't realize I came with a lot of emotional baggage from a toxic environment where I was growing up. So as a 21-year-old, I came here on my own. I started working, and then, I thought I was okay. I did have episodes where I thought that something was not okay. So I would go to the doctors. They would send me to a really silly, unuseful therapies, not even called therapies. I don't know. But anyway, so when I became a mom, that's when I really started struggling. So I became, I was a single mom. I was working full time at the time as well. And it wasn't easy. So I went to the doctors, and because I felt like something's happening, right? So sometimes with mental health, you don't always know what's going on, right? You don't understand it. So something's changing, something's not right. I don't feel okay. So I went to the doctors, and they did the postnatal depression test. And then I scored 13, where you get diagnosed at 14, for example. Right? So they said, well, you are okay. And then sent me home. And then I wasn't okay, obviously, so I continued struggling. And then over the years, I did end up heavily depressed. I went to loads of doctors. I was taking medication. I was in debt. I was physically obese and stuff like that. So there was like loads of happening. But in that time, like I can speak English, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't that difficult for me to go and ask for help or explain, or at least try to explain what was happening. But I still didn't get the help that I needed.
Yeah.
So when people can't speak English, right?
Yeah.
With mental health, I think sometimes it's even the decision to go out and ask for help is quite challenging alone, right? But then when you can't speak English, it's like even super additional layer where it's even more difficult, right? Then you go to the doctors, and then that's if you go to the doctors, right? But then you go to the doctors, you get interpreter, right? So you need to speak to a stranger.
Yeah.
Tell them. It's like, say, if I was like, I never met Edyta, she would have to come with me to the doctor. So I would need to tell her what's wrong with me. That's so hard, right? Then she needs to translate what she thinks I mean.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't know. I don't even know if I'm explaining it properly to her. So then she needs to find English to explain to you.
Yeah.
So it's like playing, that game when you were kids and you were telling something to your friend, and then your friend had to say something.
Chinese whispers.
It's just like Chinese whispers. So it's like the message that you're giving me. It's not even like it's not direct communication. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like you can end up treating me for something that's not even what I need help with.
Yeah.
Because you don't know. I don't even know.
No. Yeah.
And this person doesn't know. So it's quite challenging, right? And then we've got kids on top of it, right? So a lot of people decide to go back to Poland to get treatment. So they fly out home, or they search for private consultants here, which is like £50 per hour. So not everyone can afford it, right? So if you can't afford to pay for private, if you can't afford to go back home, or if you can't speak English enough to or if you're not comfortable to go this way, then you suffer in silence.
Yeah.
Right? And then you've got children at home. So like if you've got children at home, then that affects your kids, right? When I was going to the doctors for like, I've been struggling my son was 6 years old when I started like getting better. So for 6 years, no one ever asked me how my child is doing.
Yeah.
Like, I would go to the doctors and they would just give me medication and whatnot. And then no one ever asked, and how is your child? Is there anyone who's getting affected? Like, no.
Yeah.
So it's quite like this morning, and it's funny enough, like this morning alone, right? So I received a phone call from a Polish mom. She was referred to us by a primary school, and last year she lost a partner to suicide. There are 2 children at home, 5 and 9, and a few years ago she survived cancer. So now this, so she's going through God knows what. I don't even want to imagine. And there are 2 small children at school. So the 5-year-old is not getting any help because the consultants think, well, she's fine. The 9-year-old is getting some help, but then they think that she is better suited to help him. How is she better suited to help him?
Yeah. If she's struggling herself.
Like she's gone through something that we don't even know how it affected her yet.
Yeah.
And then we're asking her to look after her child because she's better suited. Like, so there is that no support for the community at all. So she came to us and she's like, can you help me with this, that, and then I'm like, you know what, like I can't. We can just support you to look for the help and help you to find the help that you really need and things like that. That's all we can do. But the language barrier is like, it's huge because we don't, and then we don't even know our rights. Sometimes, like we don't really know what services are out there because we don't have the information. So it's like if someone does, like, so just again example, my neighbor, she was involved in a social care system because she had a very ill daughter who then passed away. And this daughter was severely disabled, bedbound, and things like that. And she didn't even know that she was entitled to respite. I, working in social care, know that, but she doesn't because no one told her about it. And social workers are not keen to tell them. because obviously that's expensive, right? So she's missing out on information because she's not from here.
Yeah.
So she doesn't know what she's entitled to, right? So even the same with benefits, right? Or even like whatever information the national shares and things like that, right? So there are organizations out there, but people don't always know where to go.
About the barrier language, because I came here in age of 23 with 2 children already. I didn't speak English, it was basic, really basic. Apart from that, I wasn't aware about mental health or about on my own emotion either. So first 7 years was like surviving mode. You know, what is matter is your physical health, you know, if you're coughing, if you have temperature, things like that. So it was like, I was looking after home, I was looking after children. I have husband at the time, father of children. He wasn't supportive at all. After 7 years of living like that, I end up with diagnosis of fibromyalgia, which is caused mostly by stress. And then I start realize something with my mental health is not going right. I was overworking, overworrying. I was overwhelmed all the time. And this was my start of my journey because I've got a good friend. She passed me a good book. And I realized this is mental health. This is a problem with my thinking, that I was so negative. And then you don't know where is support. Even at the time, I didn't know where is support, where I can look for like talking therapists now, you know, to seeking. They only give me antidepressants and go home. That's it. It will get better or not, or you will stay like that. I read about that everything, and no, I'm going to change something. I'm not going to get this medicine. So this was the start of my journey into learn about mental health, improve myself, my well-being, and here I am 10 years later.
Well done.
I left my toxic relationship as well. I didn't have any support around mental health at all. I do it all myself. And that's why I start counseling, because I realized there is, people don't know really. I telling many Polish people there is a counseling available for free from NHS. And like Sylwia say, there is translator, which you can get Polish one, because I hear there is a kind few Polish counselors, but usually they offer translators, which is a barrier, huge barrier, because when you're with client in the room, you need to be alone. You need to have a safety space to talk, not third party to listening. You need to build the trust with the client. Me as a therapist, I need to build trust. So if somebody else, how can I trust that she will, even she signed the paper, she confidentiality thing. But
but there are some things that you don't feel comfortable. So even though you feel like deep down you want to tell them because it's a problem, but you're not gonna tell in front of a stranger because there's many
problems, emotional problems we feel shame of, like even drinking issue or any other addictions, or that we sometimes get angry.
There's violence at home or things like that.
Or domestic violence, you shame, and it's not easy to open to someone and tell the story to find appropriate help.
And then you've got 2 people in the room that it's bad enough having one, isn't it, with the doctor, but then you've got this other person in the room as well. So I knew how bad it was when I went, and I was the same. I was given prescription medication, which I didn't take for very long, and I just thought, why am I doing this? What else can I do? And you are left to fend for yourself, basically. And being Polish, you don't have that support network around you, especially when you first come over here. And it's hard to find, because you've got to find the right people, but you've also got to feel comfortable. It's all right signposting them to somewhere, and you walk in and you think, but I don't feel comfortable here. You're never going to open up unless you feel comfortable.
Yes, but even sign into talking therapies, you need to fill it out in English. You need to speak also with someone on the phone in English. You know what I mean? So for people, it's a big barrier with the language.
So with your work in the community, you said you predominantly work with Polish women, although you're open to the whole community and obviously men and children as well. Was that because of your experiences? Was that why you predominantly set it up that way? And looking now to the future, what do you think is important for you to have from communities, from governments, from businesses and other charities and supporters alike. What would you say are the main 3 things that at the moment is lacking, especially for Eastern Europeans or the Polish community, where you are now? Because I can guarantee that whatever you say now is going to be for the entire Polish community and probably most communities throughout the whole country. So can you just give us an idea? What 3 things would you both say were the main areas where you need the support to actually be able to grow this and support as many people as you can who have been in the same situation as you, coming over here, not knowing anybody, being in toxic environments, because it's not an easy thing to do. It's so hard and it's very scary.
I mean, so there's few layers to this question, which I think we're going to have to break it down later because I will forget. But the reason why we started that way was I did a little questionnaire last year. And in that questionnaire, it seemed like the women struggle the most, or at least we know they struggle the most. Okay. We only started that way because of the capacity. Ideally, we want to do have opportunity for children and young people and father, men as well. Yeah. But slowly need to build that journey. It's all down to funding, really. Obviously, with women, the majority of women that answered the questionnaire were it was 90-something% of women said that they were struggling and things like that. So it was our focus because, especially in the family setting, I think the woman has a lot of influence over the children and partner as well. So I think it makes sense to start with the woman. Going forward, I think, it's not rocket science, it's about funding, right? But then at the same time, I think about organizations working together in some way. So we don't have all the answers, but we can be part of the solution, right? So for example, there are communities, for example, there was a Black Country Women's Group approached us a few weeks ago. They wanted to come to our event, right? So I was like, okay, but do you have someone who can come and present in Polish? Because all our ladies are in Polish, all our workshops happen in Polish, so it would be nice if you can come and provide the information in the language that everyone can understand. Well, they don't. Okay. So they said, well, I can translate, which I don't mind. But now, if we're looking at the Polish community, say, for example, right, how many women can't speak English and they are stuck in domestic violence relationships?
Exactly.
Right? So how is she supposed to feel confident to go to that Black Country Women's Aid and ask for help if there's no one who can speak to her in Polish? Right?
And the same situation, translator.
Again, right? So me, I set up the group, and within a week we managed to recruit 5 volunteers.
Brilliant.
Right? So it's not difficult. It's possible. And within our group, for example, even the lady that called me today, she's gone through something I was saying to her, I can't imagine losing your partner to suicide, having 2 small children. Over the years, she managed to survive years of abuse from that partner. There was drugs, alcohol, violence, and she survived cancer and things like that. But she keeps going, right? So I'm like, I can already see she's a volunteer in the making, right?
Absolutely,
so if I invest in her, give her some training, education, support and whatnot, she can help other people. She's
Absolutely.
so resilient, right? She's still going. She's going through huge stuff. But if we were to invest in her as a community, whether it's a community companies or NHS or whoever, someone can just give her some money, give her some training, give her some support, and she can help other people. She can work for Black Country Women's Aid and help. She can be helpful. So there are solutions out there. Is investing in the community assets, I think, because there's loads, even Edyta, right? I call her full-time volunteer because she's all she does, she's volunteering. I call myself a full-time volunteer as well, because even though we've got tiny budget, it's not enough to pay myself a salary, right? So we've got volunteers who are able, but people need money to survive on as well. So if, to say we can utilize the people who are on, I don't know, benefits, for example, and give her some training.
Exactly.
And make them be a volunteer and over the phone support and whatnot.
But you cannot push someone straight to the trainings.
No.
First, you need to sort their well-being, their mental
100%,
health.
yes.
So they instead of surviving, they start thriving. Was in my situation, I was like surviving first half of living in UK, and then later I found motivation because I improved my mental health at the start. And I start thriving to wanting more. So that's why I start doing college courses one by one and find passion. My passion always was helping people anyway. Yeah. But now I'm sure this is what I want to do in my life. So it doesn't matter if I'm volunteering here, if I'm doing therapy, or if I'm doing workshops, which is my another passion. I want to learn as many workshops, even in English, because I can. And I want to translate them into Polish so I can do these small workshops about everything like suicide prevention or parenting groups, which I'm doing now, another course. I want to deliver them in Polish to the community who still not striving to learn more, to learn and language, to want. This is really...
And even with looking at our women, we've got on Saturday we had a face-to-face event, and 4 ladies came with tiny little babies. So we know that we Polish women make babies, right? So why not have a support group for moms? Right, so it just makes sense. So, and that's what I'm saying. So investing in community assets, people who they speak English, they can help, they've got time and things like that. Give them the education, give them training, give them the motivation, give them resources and whatnot, and then they can start from volunteering and then have a job. Right, so it just makes sense.
And it's not about only Polish community. I work in nasz dom, and we have Slovak without English, Czech without English, and there is many Eastern European.
And not just
even Asian ladies. I joined the group in Mindkind. They also didn't speak English. They're learning there. They have nice setup. They have ESOL lessons, and they have ESOL mental health. And they're talking on this group about mental health, learning through English. And so this is nice idea, mental health groups. But try to do in English to learn them more.
I think it's a lot about, it's the language barrier in itself is quite scary. And from my experiences of working abroad, it's most of the people I worked with spoke English. The Spanish spoke English because of what I was doing over there. But when you're coming over here and you have nothing, where do you go? Where do you go where you feel safe, where people are there to help you and to invest in you? And that is what is very lacking in all communities from my experience. But you've also got obviously the language barrier. And this brings us on to another subject matter that we want to discuss in this particular podcast is neurodiversity. Because if my information is correct, you are both neurodivergent, and Sylwia, your son's just been diagnosed with, was it autism? And I've worked with not too many people with because there's different. One of my friends is dyslexic, and one of my colleagues is ADHD, and there's so many different things that also come into play with regards to your mental health, because you're thinking, well, I'm doing what feels right to me, but somebody's telling me it's wrong. And it's not bad, and it's not criminal, and it's not hurting anybody. It feels right to you, but somebody else is saying, well, you can't do that. And how have you found with your journeys on this particular path? Because you would have not only the language barrier and the mental health issues, but also something else to contend with. What's your journey on that side of life been like for both of you? Because your diagnosis for your son was recent, was it?
Yeah, my son was just diagnosed a few weeks ago, and then I was diagnosed 2 years ago. So the journey, it's interesting, I suppose, looking at it through a cultural lens as well.
Yes, yeah.
So obviously, how old are you?
40.
Yeah, so we were raised, I'm 40 as well, so we were raised by a generation where, my grandma lived through the war.
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
My parents were raised by parents who lived through the war. My parents, we were born into the world where there was no food in shops, like our parents were given vouchers to go get things.
Rationing. Yes, rationing. Yeah.
Waiting in the queues.
Yeah.
So it's like we were born in a very crazy time
Yeah.
as well. So like now me, for example, like looking back at my childhood, I know I was autistic. I know, like I can tell when it was so obvious. But no one ever thought about it.
Yeah.
No one ever had even time to think,
Like-
is she making friends? Okay. Or, that was nobody's concern. Do we have enough food on the table? Was people's concern that if I have friends or if I'm, things like that. So it was a very weird world. And then obviously our culture as well, it's like neurodiversity is not really like a real thing.
Recognized, yeah.
Like, people get autistic because of the injection, or ADHD is because you ate too much sugar, or we still believe in a lot of things that are not true. And we don't have enough information about probably autism and ADHD back home as such. Maybe it's changing slowly. But people still come here with certain perceptions. So, for example, like, even me, for example, like when I was searching for diagnosis, like people in my family were like, what do you need it for? It's like, it doesn't make no difference and things like that. So they still little very understanding, right? But then coming here again, and then even understanding how to get diagnosed. Yeah. Right? So the process of getting diagnosed, how it works. Understanding, like, even just as a person, right? Like my son went through the diagnosis. School still doesn't understand what ADHD is. Yeah. The school, the teachers. So they are the people who should be helping me to do it. They don't know. They are lacking awareness. So like, how can I know? And if I can't speak English, like, how do I explain to the doctor that I think something's wrong with my child? Yeah. If I don't even understand what's wrong with my child, like, I didn't have my parents here to help me raise my child. I was here on my own. And there's just so many layers when it comes to parenting alone in a foreign country without the support. And then when you have neurodiversity, when you struggle with your own, like, I've got friends who can't speak English. Yeah. And then because I'm very open to talk about my symptoms and how it affects me on a daily basis, they think like, you know what, I struggle with the same thing. So maybe, and I sometimes I just wonder if it's our generation, because it seems like we are all so messed up by the childhood that we had. Like, maybe we are all neurodiverse in some way, but then at the same time, we don't talk about it because people don't know, they can't speak English, so they don't know who to speak to. We don't talk about it in our Polish culture. We just don't talk about it. It's a topic that, no one, that's a naughty child. We don't talk about that child. Yeah.
Very much like similar to mental health. It's very taboo, isn't it? It's very, we can't talk about that. We can't bring that subject up. So you touched on there about when you speak to other people, you recognise the same, I don't want to use the word symptoms, but the same traits, the same experiences and difficulties in them. Can you give us an idea of what some of those are? Because a lot of people that are listening to this podcast, and me, although I do have friends who are neurodivergent, it's very hard. It's the same with mental health. If you haven't suffered or you don't know people who have, it's very hard to make those people understand what you're trying to say. Especially, obviously, if you don't speak English as well. But can you give us some idea of some of the things that, for you, as being neurodivergent, and I'm not trying to put a label on it here because I think that's wrong, but try and explain it so that people who aren't can have a better understanding, and they maybe recognise that perhaps in themselves or in a member of their friendship group or families, and they can also go and ask for the help that they need.
I mean, so to be honest, it's not easy to explain it because there is just so many different layers to neurodiversity, and I think it's quite easy, especially like when someone has learning disability, and I think that's the problem with our diagnosis system as well. It's like when someone has learning disability or very typical manifestations, as also say, of the neurodiversity, whatever, but it's autism. Then we know what they are, right?
Yeah.
Like we know what they are. We can, like, when we know how autism is, and we know how ADHD is in a very, very typical way. So everyone can Google it. But what we don't talk about, it's like how it manifests. It's like when someone is really good at masking. So, for example, my son is 11, right? And this, when I first got diagnosed, because I never thought I've got ADHD. Never in a million years have I thought that I would have ADHD. Like, I was 100% sure that I've got autism, but ADHD was never on the cards for me. So when I first went for assessments, and then there was a question with the ADHD, I was like, I was shocked. I would, like, never in a million years, I would say, like, I'm more than happy to sit on a sofa all day long staring at the TV. Like, how can I be ADHD? So there's like the things that we are good at masking. I think that's what really needs attention, and I think more awareness. Because even like at school, people thought that there's no chance my son has ADHD, where I am quite convinced that he does. He still didn't get the diagnosis because school doesn't support it. But because I appealed the decision and my son had to go for additional assessments, they found autism.
Okay.
And it's either that he's really good at masking his autism, or there is an element of ADHD. We won't know for now because the school doesn't support the diagnosis. But sometimes it's not outside, it's all in the head. So it's like when you have a typical boy with ADHD who runs around and is like very disruptive in your room, whether it's a classroom or whether it's a playground or whatever, right? So we all know. So it's in the head. Yeah. It's like you can't switch something. So like, for example, my son you won't know that there's something happening. Yeah. But inside, he's like literally struggling and suffering so much, to the point where, like, because he had SATs last week, it was quite challenging week for him. I honestly, at some point, I wanted to call an ambulance because I didn't know what's happening, like in his head, but he could not switch it off. Wow. It's insane. It's frightening, like, isn't it? Something so simple. Like, for example, for me, I'm super impulsive and I can't manage finances. Like, and I'm 40 years old, and I like literally, it's just beyond me. I can't do it. Yeah. And I can't explain. It sounds so stupid, and like, I know how to do it. If you ask me how to do it, I will tell you the system. Yeah. I can create my own system, but I'm literally incapable of doing it. Wow. It's just so weird, because like, I know how. Yeah. I won't do it. It just won't happen. Wow. I can't explain it. It's just like, there's loads of different things.
I think you explained that quite well there, to be fair. Yeah. Because people who don't know, it is all, everybody uses this then, it's all in your head, it's all in your head. And yes, we know that's where it all starts from. But trying to explain to somebody how you're feeling is really hard to do. And I think that was really interesting, actually, you saying that I know that I should be doing this and this, and I know it all makes sense on paper, but actually, where's that disconnect that I can't physically do it? So that's really.
And the worst thing is, like, it's so disabling. Yeah. Because it's like the different thing, the daily things like that we like. Even so, this I'm a joke of amongst my friends, because I can't cook. It's not that I can't. My biggest pain as a mom is that I want to feed my child a healthy diet. Yes, it's so important to me. Yeah. It's important for me as well, especially because I struggled with weight, because I had a difficult relationship with food. My mom had a very difficult relationship with food, which then led on to me, and then now my child, right? So I want him to eat healthy. Yeah. It's so very important to me. I want to be a role model. I want to eat healthy. I can prepare a menu for the week. I know what we're gonna eat, how we're gonna eat it, etc. And it's not gonna happen like that. Because like, I know today I'm gonna cook dinner and I want to cook dinner and things like that, but like, there is a high probability it's not gonna happen, because it's the worst thing for me to do. It's painful for me to do it. Wow. It's literally painful. It pains my soul to do it.
Wow.
right? So I would rather, and no, I will end up getting a takeaway. I'm not saying it's gonna happen. It might not, right?
Yeah.
It might be,
Might be today that she. Yes.
today. But what I'm saying is, like, on a daily basis, I would rather stay at my computer and do my work because I love doing it.
Yes. Yeah.
And then make myself late or whatever, that I won't cook a healthy dinner for my child and we will end up going to a restaurant to eat. Something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like, but it pains my soul doing it.
Wow. Some powerful stuff coming here.
Yeah.
Is your experience similar to that, Edyta, or is
I
yours?
wasn't diagnosed with anything apart from fibromyalgia previously, but my son, middle son, is autistic. He was diagnosed when he was in year 4, so how old? 9, I think. Was difficult because I thought he's ADHD because he was like everywhere, but they told me he's autism, Asperger, but with myself, I realized I've got some autistic spectrum in later age, especially when I sober up, because I was masking and alcohol was my medicine. So I was like going through life, suiting myself. So I decided to sober up over 3 years ago now. And first year, 2 years were so weird. Like I have to invent myself, find who I am. And I go like through my childhood and stuff and why my life is the way it is. And I realized that I was like autistic because I suspect in other son that he is autistic. So you dipping down, where is that? And I think I was like that when I was a child. When I was a teenager, I was always weirdo. I was always different than group of the people. And now my way of thinking is like someone dyslexic say similar thing, that there is like plenty of drawers in your brain or something. They open at once. And you need to figure out which stuff you're doing at the moment. I'm struggling with focusing on the present.
Okay.
Unless I sit down with meditation, put headphones and really sit down. This is really one moment of being present. Apart from that, I'm either in the past or even the future. What I'm doing next. And when I literally wake up, everything open up, like, computer windows, like you have the windows. I always see plenty of open. I've got like in brain. So this need to be do this. And sometimes what is helping me is writing the list, the things down. So I can prioritize them, what I'm doing next to not get crazy, really, because I want to do everything at once. When I'm cleaning a house, I start one corner, I go to another, and things like that. The same with cooking. I'm doing 4 different dishes because my kids are so picky. So I have cook 4 different dishes. But I hate cooking, honestly. I only do for healthy eating and for my kids' sake. Otherwise, I wouldn't cook at all.
Wow.
So
a lot different. It's hard, isn't it? A lot of it is about what you enjoy, and we all have to do the things that we don't enjoy, and it's getting that balance right. And it's quite interesting that you say it's all about like these different doors opening up at the same time. I have a friend who's dyslexic, and he says the same thing. And at some points, he just stops. He's like, I physically can't do anything. I have to just stop because there's so many doors open in my brain that I can't function properly.
Happens sometimes, but I learned through last years how to take care of myself. So good book, really sit down, do nothing, or writing even the list. This helped me a lot, so I don't keep them open. And the good sleep hygiene, not about cleaning before bed. I shoot them down. I learned how to shoot them down. I go in sleep now. Go off, come back in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And I sleeping because I always saying good sleep is a major impact in your mental health.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and there is other stuff I managed to help myself with things. But
I think a lot of it, and I think this is for anybody and everybody, it all starts with you have to help yourself, but you are just one person and you can't do everything yourself. It's physically and emotionally and mentally impossible to do everything yourself. I hate doing my accounts, and figures are not my strong suit, but okay, pass that on to an accountant, they can check it for me. We all need help with that. But when it comes to neurodiversity or when it comes to mental health, it's very much a taboo. Well, oh no, you should be okay. And I always remember a friend of mine saying, oh, just snap out of it. But it's not as simple as that, is it? I think it's a process of working through and finding what works for you, because you've just said about the writing, that works for you. It's finding those paths, but when you don't know where to start, that's the hardest part, I think, for me. And I think
a lot of that things you can get in therapy room, for example. Yeah,
yeah,
of course. For proper counseling or something.
Yeah, and I think with that, is that education now. So where do people find education? And I think it's going back to what something you asked previously as well. What can we do to help people from different communities, whether it's Polish or
absolutely.
Right? So, and this is something that one of the questions I asked in the conference within Integrated Care Board. So we've got different communities and people get information in different ways, right? They get helped in a different way. So we've got education in schools, better or worse, but we are helping children in some way. They've got education about healthy eating and things like that. There's some of them, they have education about, they've got access to counseling at school or more or less like someone there to help them. Things, right? Then we've got adults, for example, who are unemployed or who are whatever. So Monday to Friday, they've got free resources that they can go and help in the community, or there's loads. If someone wants help, there's loads of help available free of charge. As long as you can speak your language, it's in your language. But then there's a group of people who go to work. Right. So they are at work. They are doing the best, and then after work they come back home. They are so tired. They can't sometimes even though they've been working all week or all month, and they still can't afford certain things. So they won't get help from the paid help because they can't afford it. So it's not a priority, and then they can't access the free help because they don't qualify for it. Right. So there's a lot businesses can do. Right. So this is the question about earlier. People at work, employees really need to start helping these people who are at work and prioritizing that health and well-being, education, like even how budgeting and things like that, or workshops on how to work with children and things like mental health and stuff like that. There's a lot that they can help us with at work.
I've done mental health first aid at work course.
Okay.
It's not mandatory yet to have a mental health at workplace, but what I found within the mixed communities, the people, there is often hate crime going on. They prioritize one nationality over another one. And I've got a friend which is suffering with huge stress, impacting his mental health, but he's not going to leave that work because he needs that work to pay the bills. Even I told him where to go, what to do, where to turn, how to report. He's not going to do because he's literally scared of losing the job. So, but his mental health declining, and his wife already noticing his stress outside the work. So there is a lot around that as well. If they put someone for mental health, they will fix the companies, I would say. People's well-being, and like you say, help them with little things.
There's a lot that people can
My
do.
other friend was fired because she missed few days because her son is autistic and he's got as well epilepsy, and he's got epilepsy fits. She have to stay at home with him. And she lost job because of that. Nobody could understand. She missed job. That's it. Or unless she couldn't explain to her manager or whoever is over her.
There is very little support at work for employees' well-being, and part of what we do, one of the services that we sell and that help us with our projects as well is we help people to start domiciliary care agencies in social care. So one of the things that we talk about is the importance of your well-being, staff well-being, and how we create the environment that we help to make sure that people remain like physically and mentally healthy to continue doing the job
and doing the best of the job.
Exactly.
Not missing hours, not missing days, not going on sick notes.
And much more. So it's important, and I think the employers, and I honestly, mental health first aid. I would say it's health and safety a requirement.
Yeah.
At some point, it really needs to become.
Yeah.
But then there's loads of free stuff available. And again, I think organizations, they don't really need to think about that. People are scared that they need to invest a lot of money in something like that. But sometimes all you need is connect with your local organizations in the community just to be aware what's out there, and then take advantage of the offer out there and inform your staff it's there.
Yeah.
Just let them know that it's there.
Exactly.
It can be enough.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say sometimes that's all you need, isn't it? Just to know that it's there.
Yeah.
You think, oh, I'll store that in my brain for later on. So thank you so much for your time today, ladies. It was lovely to meet you. Finally, at last, Sylwia and I have spoken before, and it was lovely to meet you, Edyta. Thank you so much for listening. Take care and enjoy your day. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to keep up to date with all things leading communities. You can follow Aspire for You at A4UCIC. To follow That All Media, search at That All Media. You can also join us on Facebook at Leading Communities Podcast.